Okay, Lexi, we're going to look at one of the proofs from lesson 53. We're going to look at the first one. It's number 23. So if you want to pull your sheet out and go ahead and fill in the blanks along with me, that would be great. Okay, so let's take a look at what we have here. We have a triangle. I'm going to look at the given information over here. We're told that AB is congruent to BC, so we're going to go ahead and mark that. AB is right here and BC is right here. So they're saying that those two sides are congruent. We're also told that BM is an altitude of this triangle, which we can see BM coming down to the bottom from one of the vertices, B, down to where you see it right here on the line segment AC. So it's at point M. Okay, so let's look here. The very first statement says that line segment BM is an altitude of ABC. So what does that mean to us? Well, remember, when you have an altitude that comes down, if it's coming down from one of the vertices all the way down to the opposite side, it's creating a right angle here, actually on both sides, obviously, right? These are two 45-degree angles or two right angles. So if we eye up the names of those angles, we'll see that one of them is A, goes here, AMB. So that's one of the angles, so AMB. And the other right angle, we'll go ahead and name that as CMB. And that would be this one here, CMB. Right here. I'm trying to do it in green there so you can see it. Okay, so those are the two angles we're talking about, those two right angles. And we'll fill that in here. So because of that altitude, we now have two right angles. So what does that mean? So what's the reason for that? Because of the perpendicular lines. Perpendicular lines intersect to form two right angles. I'll go ahead and put the other one right there. Okay, so number 3, what does that mean? Well, if I have two right angles within those triangles, well then now they're also right triangles. So we'll go ahead and fill that in. So triangle AMB and triangle CMB are right triangles. And that's simply because of the definition of a right triangle. Right triangles have a right angle. Okay, we're going to go ahead and grab our other piece of given information up here, which was that line segment AB is congruent to line segment BC. And we already marked those off. I'll go up here and do them in blue. Again, AB and BC, given. Okay, so now what we're trying to do is see if we can prove these triangles congruent, because in the end, what we're trying to do, let's look and see what we are trying to prove. What we're trying to prove is that point M is the midpoint of AC. So here's point M. I'm putting a yellow mark on it. We're trying to prove that that is the midpoint of AC, and here's AC across the bottom. So we want to prove that that point is right smack dab in the middle of line segment AC. So if we can prove these triangles congruent, then our hope is that if we prove them congruent, then we know we're going to be able to say that those sides are congruent. And if those sides are congruent, well, then obviously that point landed right in the middle of AC because it made two equal line segments. So before I mark those, let's make sure we can prove it. All right, so number 5, oh, you love this one. This is the reflexive property. So we're going to say that a line segment, which was the altitude, BM, is congruent to itself. Why? Because of the reflexive property. Both of those triangles that are congruent to each other share side BM. So now, do I have enough to prove that those two triangles are congruent? Well, let's go up here and look. So I have, now remember, in a right triangle, we aren't going to be able to use, remember how we always can use either, well, side angle side or angle side angle. Remember, but in this one, when you have a right angle in a triangle, we use the one that's called the hypotenuse leg. We haven't seen that for a little while. But when you have a right triangle or two right triangles that are congruent triangles, the reason that those are congruent is because of the hypotenuse leg. And if you'll notice, like we have a leg and the hypotenuse. This is the hypotenuse over here on this side, and it's over here as well. Okay, and then we also have this leg right here where we have the reflexive property. BM is considered the leg. So those triangles are congruent because of the hypotenuse leg. Okay, and I don't remember, that might be a postulate. I'd have to pull out that packet and see if it's a postulate or a definition or a theorem proving congruent triangles. They are postulates, and that one is actually postulate 11. It's in that packet that I gave you. Okay, so since we've proven our triangles congruent, then that does mean that AM and MC are congruent. So I'm going to mark those in red so you can clearly see those. AM is congruent to MC because those two triangles are congruent. So the corresponding parts are also congruent. So that's the corresponding, parts of congruent triangles are congruent. And point M is then the midpoint of AC. And the reason for that is simply the definition of a midpoint. And that sums it up for number 23 from lesson 53. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get ready for lesson 53, number 24, and I will send that to you separately. Thank you.